Welcome back, csc200 W1 to our ex8. This is our intro to PHP using Goorm. And what we're going to do next is start working with PHPMyadmin, which is a web-based database tool. And we already connected to it, we already set it up, but now we're actually going to use it. So in part 2 here, we're at 13, we have to connect to it. So we already know how to do that, but let's review that. Keep in mind, we have a whole bunch of tabs open here. We have our containers, our dashboards open, and then we have our workspace area. And remember, down here's our terminal. I have it minimized right now, but we have our terminal down here. We have files that we're working on here. We have different files over here. And we also connected to our URL where it was going to our container directory and then also to another folder inside there called ex8. So we're going one folder in to ex8, and this is a new index page that we created, which is connecting to our database server. We also have W3 schools open because we're just copying and pasting some code, which is very helpful. If we were doing this one step at a time, this would take forever. So we're going to do a little bit more with that, but first we're going to connect to PHPMyadmin. So that will be another tab that opens up. So we're going to go back to our kind of our workspace area here, and we could keep this open. And again, to connect to our PHPMyadmin, we're going to go to that project running URL and port, and just connect again, so it opens a new tab. Now you could have connected to this one, we could have changed this one, but we'll make a new tab here, and I'll just go to this Goorm Pt2. Remember, that's that default page that's there, and what you're going to do to connect to PHPMyadmin, you're not going to put PHPMyadmin after this, you're going to replace this. And we're going to put PHPMyadmin right here. So it's going to replace that Goorm PHP. So we're just going to put that in there, in this particular tab, and then just hit enter. And it takes me into the login page, and it already has PHPMyadmin right here. And then I'm just going to put root and hit go. And you should see the 5 items over here, and that means it's okay. And if you go to databases, you should be able to create a database. And we had to change some permissions to do that, and I think everybody's okay with doing that. If you see these, you should be able to create a database. Now, we're not going to create a database right now from scratch, even though we could. What we're going to do is we're going to just use code and just have our database already created, so we don't have to put everything in manually. Everything will already be in for us. I already have a database that we're going to use. It's a world database with country in it, and if you go to your SQL tab here, we're going to be able to type SQL code in here. Just like when we were in Python Anywhere, we had to do everything in the console. Well, here we can actually put SQL queries in here and run them and kind of use this as a tool for our database instead of having to do everything in the console. Now, what we need first is a database because we don't have one. So to do that, I have one for you. So what you're going to do is you can keep this open. You're going to go back here. You can cancel out of this, and I put this text file in here. I also have it in documents and resources, but as long as it's in here, just use this one. Double click on world.txt, and this is basically all your SQL code that you're going to need to create a database. It's all in here, so don't worry about it. There's all these countries. There's a lot of code here. And all that you have to do is just go in here and copy it and paste it into that SQL tab. So I'm just going to do a Command A. If you're on Windows, do Control A. So you highlight everything, and then do a Control C or Command C, whether you're on Mac or Windows. So I'm going to do Command C. And then you're going to go back to PHPMyadmin, and in this SQL area, you're going to paste it all. And this is one big query. You can see it's like 278 lines of code. And you don't have to worry about anything yet. You just have to go down here to the bottom right and hit the go button. So I'm going to hit go. And what you want to see is green. If you see green with a checkbox, that's good. And you don't see the database yet, but I'm going to go back to databases, and there it is. There's world. And if I click on world, I now see a country table that's there. Now, I'm not seeing it over here yet because it might just have to refresh over here. I think this is a refresh over here. And there, now you see it down here. But it was showing over here anyway. So this is the country table. We only have one table in here. It's the country table. Notice it's a capital C, country. And if I go in here, I basically see, oh, I get all these errors. Just ignore these. I know they look scary at first. Just ignore all. Don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt anything. And what you're going to see here is your database. You could browse the database. And this is set up in order by code. So it's using country codes. That's why it's starting with AB, AF, AG, and so on. And basically they put 25 on a page because obviously there's more countries. There's showing rows 0 through 24. So on this page there's rows 0 through 24. And that's all they'll show on one page. You could change that, I think. It says number of rows 25. So it's 0 through 24. It starts at 0, just like everything computer-wise. So you're seeing the first 25 countries out of 239. There's 239 countries total in the world, I believe, if this is accurate. And what we're going to be able to do is connect to this database from Goorm. From a PHP file, we'll be able to connect to this database and see this database, and we're going to be able to put SQL queries inside there. Now, what we have so far, I'm just going to keep this open right now. I don't think there's anything else we could do. You could go through here and sort stuff and look at all kinds of things. We could run queries. Sometimes we do this in the Intro to Computing class. We use this the free tool that they have online. We've done some stuff with it. But we're going to be using this a little bit. We won't be using a whole lot, but it's a nice place to actually manage our databases better and actually see our databases than having to do everything in the terminal. Now, what I'm going to do next is go here, and I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to close it up. So I don't need that. And this index page, we're going to replace this stuff. I know we just changed some things here, but we're going to replace this. So I'm going to go back to W3 Schools, and what I'm going to do is go down, instead of just connecting, we used a connect function here, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a function that actually runs some queries inside it. So there's a select data down here. So in the same area, if you just go down to MySQL select data, and then once again, it says select data from a MySQL database. That's what we're going to do. And we'll be using SQL code in here, but what you're going to do is scroll down and once again, look for the procedural one. Now, this is a little more detailed, and we're going to work with this a little bit, but highlight the whole thing. The MySQLi procedural, highlight the whole thing, and not the whole page, but just this part here, and then Control-C or Command-C, whatever you're using, and then we're going to go back to here, and then replace all this, wipe all this out. So highlight all of this, and then just paste. I'm going to do Command-V, as in Victor, and paste, and now we have new code in there. And once again, we're going to update our username and put PHPMyadmin and make sure that's correct. And for our password, we're going to put in root because that's what we're using. So that's our username and root. And now it's asking for DB name. And it says MyDB. Well, our database isn't called MyDB. Our database is called world with a lowercase w. So it's lowercase world. So that's what we're going to use. So we're going to put world here and make sure we spell it right. So then these variables will represent those strings of our host, our server, our PHPMyadmin, root, our username, password, and then the database. And it has another kind of if statement. It has a couple if statements here. It also has a connection that we just used. So it still has that same one that we used. It has a connection here, so it's going to do that first. And if the connection doesn't work, it's going to say connection failed. And if it works, it's going to run a query. So I'll go through this a little bit, but let's make sure we have everything as we go down. So we have our right information here to connect. Our connect code doesn't really have to change at all. It could just stay exactly as it is. It's using this variable that says con, and it's running the connection function with these arguments in here. If it doesn't connect, it's going to say failed and give you some kind of error. And if it doesn't fail, if it connects, it's holding a variable here that's going to represent a query. So here's our SQL right here. There's a query here. And it's saying select ID, first name, last name from my guess. Now that's from some other database that they have in W3 Schools. Well, we're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is we're going to select, let's check our notes just to make sure we are what we're doing here. We're actually at this place in our notes, 22. So we're on our last page now. And what we're going to do is we're going to select code, name, and continent. So in our database, we're going to select code, name, and continent. These first three here, that's what we're going to choose. And remember, we're not going to do select all because we're selecting specific columns. So that's why we don't have to do select all. All means all columns. So we're going to select code, comma, name, comma, continent from the country table. So it's going to be right here. So you could even use some stuff from here if you want, but we could type it ourselves. So we can go back here, and it says select, and we're going to put code, and you have to put it exactly the way it is. You have to remember that it's a capital C, capital N, and capital C for continent. So you just have to look and be careful. So we're going to use code, and then we're going to use, what are we going to use? Name and continent. Good thing I don't have more than 3. I can't remember these for more than 2 seconds. Name and then continent, and it says from my guess. No, it's not from my guess, it's going to be from country. So there's country with a capital C, and you don't necessarily have to put the semicolon inside there. Now we have a semicolon because of PHP at the end of the line, but you don't have to put the SQL semicolon in there, I don't believe. So you just have to remember that the code, the SQL code, is actually being run as a string. It's actually being run, I guess it's being saved as a variable as a string. So that way, when it runs it, it's actually going to use whatever's inside those quotes. So this variable represents this SQL code. And then the result is basically going to be whatever comes out of the connection and whatever the query runs. So result is basically what our results are. And then there's another if statement here. Whatever the result is, if it's greater than 0, then it's going to run like a loop here and keep printing them out, keep echoing them out as you get them if there's more than 0. And this is what it's going to echo, and it's a combination of strings and variables, these row variables, which actually the row variables are kind of what's coming out of it. So the row variable is showing the column name. So we're going to have to put column names in here. So instead of ID here, I'm going to go in here and put code. And instead of ID here, this is just a string, but I'm still going to put code here for the country code. So it's going to echo the string code and then the actual code, and then it's going to put name. Now I'm not sure why this dash is here. I'll just let it here for now. Again, we're just kind of practicing with this because we're going to eventually put it in a table in our next exercise. So we could leave it at name because that's actually what it is. It's called name, and then first name is going to get changed to name. So we'll change that. Now these have to be, these are the column names, so these have to be correct. You can see they even came up here. And this last one here is going to be continent. Oh, it does. Look at that. Continent. It remembered it from, I guess, this stuff up here. So I'm going to just click in continent. So we're just putting continent. So these are the columns that are printing out. And then there's a line break. This is a loop here. While is a type of loop, which means it's going to keep running as long as it's getting results. And after each code that it prints out, it's running a line break. This is HTML code here, this BR tag, so it's running a line break. So it's not going to look real nice, but it's going to put everything on its own line. And then it has an else here, meaning if there's no results, it's going to say 0 results. So that's why there's a second if here. So if there's results, it's going to do all this stuff, and if not, it's going to say 0 results. And if it doesn't connect, it's not even going to get to here. It's just going to say connection failed. So we can try all this kind of stuff. And then at the end, there's just a close function that runs down here. So these are all kind of special PHP functions that work with MySQL databases. All these things in this light blue are kind of meant to work with MySQL databases. So as long as we get the right information in here, again, we're going to change this eventually and work more with PHP and get more familiar with it. But right now, we're just plugging in a couple things that we need. So we just have to make sure we have the right stuff up here. We have to make sure we're connecting, and then make sure we have select code, comma, name, comma, continent from country. We don't need a semicolon here, and make sure it's a capital C country. So if anything's wrong, it won't work. If we spell anything wrong, we're going to get a 0 result. So if it gets past here and we mess up our query, we're going to get 0 results. So let's see what happens right now. And what do I have to do? I have to save this. So I'm just going to do Command S, and you could do Control S. Make sure there's an X there. That means it's saved. And then I don't have to do anything here. There's nothing I have to do here. This is just kind of managing the database. So I don't really even need this. I won't close it up, but I don't need to do anything here. But where I am going to go, I'm going to go back to my URL here. Because remember, this is running that index page. This is our new index page now. So if I refresh this, hopefully, it should show us a list of countries. Let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. And you can see this is what printed out. It says code and a colon, and then it shows the code. And there's the dash. I didn't know what that dash was, but it's just putting a dash, and then it's saying name, Aruba, and then it's just saying North America. It's just saying the continent. So we don't have that heading. It doesn't look real nice. Like I said, we're going to put it in a table eventually, but at least we're seeing everything right here. And there's some weird characters in here, but That's showing the 239. We could run code that could give us the number of results. There's all kinds of things we could do. We could even go in here if we wanted to and say, wow, that's a lot. Let's go in here right after country. Let's say limit, if you remember doing this, let's say limit 30 or something. Let's just do that. And make sure you save it. So I'll do Command S or Control S on Windows. And then if I go back here and I refresh it, it'll show me 30 now, because I just updated that query. And let's look at our instructions to make sure I'm following this. So I said try running different queries. That's what we just did. We ran all these from country. Now we could do one that says where continent equals North America. Let me try that. So I'm going to go back here, and I'll take away this limit 30 right now. And I'm just going to say select code name continent from country. After from country, we're going to put where continent. And actually what we should do is probably not put continent, because if we're going to say where continent equals North America, then I don't know if we need the continent. So I'm going to take that out, and we'll just put the code and the name, and we'll put from country, and then I'll put where continent equals, and I'll use single quotes, and I'll put North America. Now I would have to know that North America is spelled that way, and that that's one of the continents. And I need to put a single quote over here. Now I'm putting a single quote because I'm inside double quotes. Whenever you have double quotes and you need to use quotes inside there, we still have to put a string inside here. So I'm going to use a single quote around North America. So just be careful with that. There's double quotes around the whole query, but then there's single quotes inside here around North America. And I think you can do them opposite. You could have single quotes and then use double around there. But I like doing the double quotes and then the single quote inside there. So I think that looks okay. I'm kind of going from memory here, but I think that's okay. And we do have to put from country in there, so I'll have to fix those notes for you. So let's see if this works. Let's save it, and let's see if this query works. And we're just going to go back here, and I'm just going to refresh it. And these are all from North America. And you might say, wow, there's that many. Are they all countries in North America? And they are. These are all countries from the continent of North America, including United States. Now, there's also something, if you go in here and you look at some of these, I don't know if there's North America here, but there's also a region of North America. So those are where you'll see like Canada and United States and stuff like that. So there's also the region that we'll use. So what I'll do is I'll go back in here, and I'll go back to my index, and I'll say, instead of where continent is North America, let's put region, because that'll be a smaller group. And I'll save it again. And so again, we're just selecting code and name from the country where the region equals North America. And make sure you save this, and it is, because there's an X there. And I'll go back here, and I'll refresh it. And these are the only countries in the region of North America. So everything that we're showing are countries. And there's the country code. We took away continent. We didn't have to put the continent. There's only 5 countries in the region of North America. There's a whole bunch. I think there's like 30 or 40 of them that are actually countries in the continent of North America, but this is the region of North America. So that's all you have to do. That's all we're going to do for this exercise, just to get started with that. We'll do more with this. And I'm even a little rusty with the queries. I wasn't even thinking about queries for a while as I did this, but just a couple things to remember, to make sure the double quotes, and make sure you use single quotes in there. And you could try all kinds of different things. If you want to, the first one that we did, if you wanted to limit them, you can. I think I show on the notes that, you know, we could limit these or whatever, but this is the one we ended up doing, except I forgot to have from country. I don't think this would work. And actually, I just want to try it, not to make the video longer, but I don't think I can have without from country in there. I can't just put select code name where region equals North America. Let me just see this. That should be wrong. So if you're following, if you had followed what I was doing on the notes, that would be wrong, I believe. Let's run this. And you get 0 results because it's not saying from what table. So you have to have the table in there, and my notes do not have that. So unfortunately, that's a mistake in there. So I'll undo that and make sure you have from country in there. You have to have the table in here. So in my notes, I have to fix this, because this should say from country each time for this one and that one. So I will fix that before I, hopefully before you get to this. So after you do that, there's only 5 results. We're down at the end here. You should be done. And all that you have to do is, it says you can log out of PHPMyadmin. What I'd like you to do, this would be helpful, and let me fix this first. Let me save this one more time, and I'll refresh it. There's my results. What I'd like you to do, if you just want to copy this, you know, just as evidence of your results, just copy that, and I'll just do a Command C, and if you're on Windows, Control C, and then go back here, and then inside ex8, just go in ex8, make a new file. And we won't do this all the time, but I'm just doing it now. Just make a new file that's inside there, that's inside ex8, and just call it results.txt. Just make it a text file. So just make it results.txt, and then just hit OK. And it does open up by default. And then just paste it in there. And then just save it. I'll do a Command S, you can do Control S. And then just save it and close it. And then I'll see your results. That way I can actually see your results without even getting in there. Not that I won't go in there, because I will, but I could see right off the bat that, hey, you got your results there and you followed the instructions and you did what you had to do. So I could see that you did that final query right there with the countries that are part of the region of North America. So you could close that up. So that'll be inside your ex8 folder, your index PHP, which has all your connections and is running the queries, and then a results in there. So you could close this up as long as everything's saved. Make sure you have an X there, and then just close it up. And what I'll do is I'll go back here. I won't worry about this yet. Let me go back and close up PHPMyAdmin. I could go back here. Now, all that you have to do here is just log out. They have a little logout button. It's really hard to see, but it's a logout button. You could just log out, and then you could just close that tab. So you could close your PHPMyAdmin tab. And this one, I don't need this anymore, so you could close that tab. I don't need W3 Schools anymore. You could close that tab. And then the last two tabs we have open are our dashboard and this. Now, if you're done with this, all that you have to do here, now it doesn't matter if you close this up or not, all that you have to do is just go to close container. You don't even have to log out. I mean, you can sign out once you're done, but always close your container first, because that will take you out of your terminal, your active terminal. So I'm going to close container, and what it does, and I'll hit yes, and what it does is it kind of leaves two dashboards open. I wish it didn't do that, because then you have two dashboards open. You have this one and this one. And I wish it just kind of took you out of your dashboard and you could go back. But anyway, you have two dashboards open. So whatever one you want to close up, and when you're done, you can just log out. You can just go on your picture. If you have a picture or an icon, whatever you have here, you could always go here and just sign out. I'm going to leave myself signed in right now, so I'm just going to close that, because when I go look into your containers, if I'm signed in, I go in there right away and I don't have to sign in. So I'm just going to close this up right now. I'll stay signed in. Nothing wrong with staying signed in. And what you're going to do when you're done is go back to My Warren and go to Coursework and go down to Unit 8 and just click on the assignment, just add comment, and just say finished. Finish ex8. That's all you got to do. You don't have to put your username. You don't have to put your link to your Goorm container, because I already have them. I already copied them and I put them in a Word file so I could click on them. So you don't have to put your username or anything in there. You could just say finish ex8, and that way I know, and I'll see your comment in there. So that's all you have to do for that. And we're going to be doing more, so this was kind of just like a little intro to PHP a little bit, just to make sure we can connect to a database, make sure we can connect to our PHPMyAdmin, and kind of go back and forth from there. So we'll be able to do more with this as we continue. And we'll make it look nicer with tables. We're going to do stuff with web pages. We'll do a lot of cool stuff. But this is just the start, so make sure that you have everything set up and make sure this is working for your ex8.